Folks, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and I'm in Total War Rome 2, but this video is going to be a sister video to the discussion about fantasy games that I would like to see from Creative Assembly in the future, and this one obviously is going to be where I discuss what I would like to see from a historical perspective from Creative Assembly in the future. Now these of course are just wishes. I don't have any kind of special access or previews to what Creative Assembly is working on beyond what they have announced publicly. And if I did, I would be under an NDA and I wouldn't be making such a video. So I don't have anything special, so don't take anything from what I'm saying here and think that it means that I know what's going on behind the scenes. These are simply what I would like to see, right? Not necessarily what we will see, not necessarily what they are making, and of course this may differ from what you want to see. I'm going to give you 3 of my top picks were future historical-based games. Notice I say historical-based games from Creative Assembly, not necessarily Total War games, because, you know, there could be fun stuff you could do outside of the Total War format. Now, anyway, that's something for you all to think about. I want you to be thinking about what you would like to see from a historical standpoint, and then have you leave those down in the comments. Alright, so let's jump right into it, and I'm going to get this out of the way right up front because I know this is going to disappoint a whole big bunch of you, and it is nothing against you, or it's nothing to say that this wouldn't be an excellent game, but it's not going to be in my list, and I will explain why. So, Medieval 3 is not going to be in my list, and some of you may be freaking out. You're a traitor. You're not even a real Total War player. How could you not pick Medieval 3? Now, if you want my opinion, I think Medieval 3 might be one of the most likely next titles that's actually coming out. But remember that this video is for me to discuss what I would want, not what I necessarily think is the most likely one to come out. So, I actually do think Medieval 3 is quite likely the most, probably the most likely pick that we're going to see. From Creative Assembly moving forward. I could be wrong. We obviously know also that Creative Assembly is working on some kind of successor to Three Kingdoms because they cut off all the support. I don't know whether the Three Kingdoms one equates to a historical title, if that's the next historical title they're working on, if they're working on another one. I'm not sure if I totally understand it. My guess would be that they're working on the Three Kingdoms sequel, and they're probably also working on a full-scale historical Total War as well. I'm guessing. Again, I don't know. So yes, Medieval 3 is not on my list, not because I don't think it's likely, not because I don't think it's coming, but it's just not one of my top 3, though it would be an absolutely excellent game if done properly, and yes, I would absolutely play the crap out of it on the channel. Now, that said, let's jump into the ones that I would like to see and why. So, I'm actually going to save my favorite pick for last, okay? So, these other 2 are in no particular order. One that I definitely want to see is Empire 2. And the reason I say that is because we saw some really cool changes come with Napoleon. There was much better effects, sound effects, visuals, improved AI, although it was still crappy. But then Empire Total War to me had some really awesome mechanics with the reload times on the different muskets and everything that went on there that made it really fun to play. That time period is epic. So I would like to see an Empire 2 that comes out maybe as a trilogy, and it expands the global map until you get to the final game where the entire world is your oyster in terms of campaign map and tons of factions, so take it way further than what we saw in Empire 1, meaning I want to see factions from basically every continent except, I mean, I don't know, maybe you could have a penguin faction from Antarctica, but you all know what I mean, right? I want to see factions from every continent, all types of different units, all kinds of cool stuff, all over the world, in an awesome epic trilogy that would leave you on the floor, just, you know, like almost passed out in satisfaction from such an epic historical Total War game. So Empire 2 on a global scale that could span hundreds of years. I think the start time should be like 1600 and run all the way up to like 1850. Or maybe a little beyond, right? Probably stops before 1900. It'd be really cool to see that and have the technology flow with it accordingly and have different factions have access to different technology and units and all that other kind of stuff. It would need to be pretty far-reaching. They would have to come up with some more interesting stuff. on the campaign map, as far as settlements go and research and all that kind of stuff. But I think it would be an absolutely epic title, and it is definitely one of my picks that I would very much like to see and see happen. Anyway, so that's my first one, Empire 2, that I would like to see come in. Now, I'm going to move on to the next one. Now, this one was kind of tough for me because historical settings are a little trickier. You can pick smaller ones that are a little more focused. You can pick large, like world scale ones. But yeah, anyway, so from a second one, I honestly do think it would be kind of fun to see a little bit wider scale game. You know, so like for instance, we got Troy, which was set way further ancient than even Rome. I think it'd be cool to see one further back into like the Bronze Age, or you know, maybe even earlier, right? A Total War game set earlier that focuses on the factions before, obviously, the big rise of Rome and all the changes there. I just think that could be fun. You know, things would be a little more primitive. Maybe that's too simplistic. Maybe it wouldn't work, and possibly there's other better settings. But I do think that one would be interesting. A lot of people have mentioned it, you know, wanting to see like a Bronze Age Total War. Again, pick whatever age that is. I think it would be fun and a neat way to get some new factions into the game. I'm not hugely familiar with that time period, but I know that there would be a lot of neat things there. And I want to say Age of Empires 1 kind of touched in that time period as well. And so that could be a fun one. And I put that on my list just because it would be something different that's never been visited by Total War before. And it's not to say that there aren't other theaters and things that they could visit as well, but that one would be on my list. I'm not going to go into a whole lot more detail on that one because honestly I don't know a whole lot more detail. But again, it's a time period that hasn't been touched. I think it'd be fun and I'd like to see it. Now, I saved my favorite pick for last, and again, this one may be divisive for some people because it is a revisit of something they've already done. I want to see a Rome 3. Air, what in the world? You got Rome 2, it's still a pretty good game. It was one of the newer ones they made. That's true. Those things are definitely true. Rome 3 is my top pick. Why? It's the coolest time period. I mean, come on. I would think that probably a majority of us might even agree on that. It is the coolest time period. This ancient time period in which Rome rose and the whole world was going on would be super cool, but I would take it and I would do something similar to say like what I asked for in Empire 2, which would eventually, maybe not a full world scale because Rome didn't necessarily span the whole world, but maybe you slowly expand the map through 1 or 2 sequels and take it all the way over to China and Japan and have all that cool stuff get pulled in. Korea, India, you know, all those places. That would be epic. And then it would set itself up for all kinds of cool DLC too, where you could actually take Alexander and take his campaign even further, right? What if Alexander didn't stop on the outskirts of India where he was at, right? What if he kept going? You could do a whole bunch of really cool stuff with that. So Rome 3 is definitely my number 1 pick. I would want to see that game come back with exceptional faction variety, better functioning pike units, way more cool commander abilities, and faction bonuses, benefits, and play styles. It wouldn't necessarily be fantasy, but I would say I would like to see a little bit more fantasy element in it. Not magic or other crazy stuff, but like for instance, we saw things in Rome 2 like the Suebi commander abilities that were really cool. And then we have things in, say, Warhammer 2 where different factions play very differently on the campaign map. Like some are extremely driven to fight, others have really good economies, and others are more nomadic. So that type of thing is what I'm saying. So I'd love to see more variety in the campaign play style for all these different factions, and way more cool building mechanics, the ability to recruit local troops or adapt your own troops, rearming, re-equipping, just all kinds of cool stuff that you can bring into play to really create a ton of replayability and basically never-ending possibilities for a game set in my favorite time period of history, which is ancient. And I just think that would be super fun, and I really crave it. I think Rome 3, done right, would be an epic that could maybe even be more epic than its predecessor in, like, say, Rome 1. And Rome 2 eventually was pretty good, but to me, some of the most epic Total War games, personally, were probably Rome 1, Shogun 2, that type of stuff. partly because of when I played the games and got into them. But in any case, that's my top 3 picks for historical. Make sure you get down in the comments and tell me all what you all would think. Now, all of these games that I picked, I think would be good in the Total War format. I just think it fits history quite well. That said, in my fantasy picks, I did, have a game that I thought should, just be in more of a real-time strategy format, and a little less like Total War. Now, again, that said, you all pick what you think and tell me. I'll make sure to get down in the comments and check it out. HeirofCarthage, signing out for now. I will see you all soon with some more action in historical Total War.